Welcome to LilyTube. Please take a moment to give this video a thumbs up and make sure you are subscribed. Today we're talking about important topics related to dating, marriage, and divorce that come from a popular reality TV show about new relationships. Stick around as we give you our reaction as single life and relationship coaches to a few highlights from Married at First Sight. We will dive into that whole mess after a quick word from our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by Canyon Foot and Ankle. From simple nail care to advanced trauma and reconstructive care, their podiatrists have the training and skills needed to resolve even the most complex cases. Treat your feet to the exceptional care they deserve.
You know, Jeff, I liked Married at First Sight more than I thought I would, at least at first. The couples are thoughtfully chosen for each other by professional matchmakers. We happen to watch season 13, but we'll be focusing our comments mostly on the premise of the show rather than the season specifically. At the end, we will have a quick discussion, though, about the 5 couples in this season, so stick around for that.
While watching, I mentioned to Cathy that the girl is crying about getting married even though she hasn't met the guy she's marrying yet, to which you replied,
wouldn't you?
Yeah, I thought the show was like getting married and having sex all on the first date, which it wasn't necessarily.
Sex on the first night with a complete stranger? It's allowed, it's legal, it's lawful, but many of them didn't do it. Over time throughout the season, we learned that many of the couples did not consummate their marriage as early as most married couples do on their wedding night. Because they had just met each other, it took them a while to warm up to that, some more than others.
Well, and outside our faith, there's a lot of people that consummate, well, before, long before, but many of these couples were scrupulous about not just going to bed with somebody they barely met, even though they were technically married to them.
Well, and I think part of that is a one-night stand, you don't have to see that person again. In this case, the stakes were higher.
So ceremonies started with what each of the families wanted the new partner to know about the person. They had people introduce them to each other, essentially. And they ended with the phrase, by the strength of your commitment and the power of your love, to which a lot of them laughed. To our surprise, every single person said yes. They must trust the matchmakers. Now let's talk about due diligence.
I mean, you're the lawyer. What would you say about due diligence?
Due diligence is simply when a person buying a piece of property or buying a new business, whatever, is going through the steps of learning as much as they can about what it is they're buying, what kind of business relationship they're getting into, what kind of a building they're buying, what's its history, what are the repairs, what maintenance has been done, all that kind of stuff, to make as sure as they can that they're buying something that's going to be worth the investment.
So when it applies to getting married at first sight, what you're saying is that the experts went and vetted each person and vetted as much as they could find out about them to decide who to pair up.
Right, and they did it based on their own education and training and experience to give the best chance they could to, I think this person would work with this person, but there were a lot of assumptions in there about what would be good for this person or that person, what they like and what they don't like.
Sometimes they got it right, sometimes not so much.
Seemed like not so much, most of the time.
I remember a moment when a friend advised one of the participants by saying, if you go in thinking this is my forever, it doesn't matter what happens, you're gonna end up all right. But if you go in there saying, what if, then it's not going to end right because you're going into a lot of what ifs in marriage.
Cathy, I think a couple of things about that. One is that I remember on my first wedding day when I was married to my kid's mom, my uncle gave me some advice that wasn't very romantic but was actually very practical and very important. He said, you know, with 6 billion people on the earth, I think there's more like 8 billion now, but he said, with 6 billion people on the earth, chances are there's somebody you could do better with. And with that many people on earth, there's also somebody you could have done worse with. There comes a time when you have to stop looking and start building something with somebody. And so forget about thinking about I could have done better. Just build with who you've chosen. You know, I think he was right about that. I think we would do better if we weren't always thinking the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Now, I don't know that that was an issue on this show. But, you know, in arranged marriages, in other societies, like there are a number of societies where parents arranged marriages for their kids. And, you know, they have a lower divorce rate than love marriages in the West.
You know, do you remember the moment when we were told they have to decide in 8 weeks if they're going to get divorced? And
Exactly
that was the moment when I was like, what the heck is this show? What is this?
So it's a trial marriage. They're not saying, really, till death do you part, you know, anything comparable
Well, but
to
they
that.
kept emphasizing, this is a legal marriage. It actually happened.
They're actually really married.
But not if you have a decision to make in 8 weeks if you're going to get divorced. How is that a real marriage?
Right. I mean, even if it was technically legal, but you're going to annul it or divorce in 8 weeks or whatever, yet you are approaching it with an eye to, I'm deciding whether or not to keep this marriage. It's sort of like, you know, one of those products. We'll give it to you for 30 days to try it out. And if you don't like it, you get a money back guarantee, you know. And it seemed a little bit like that with these marriages
Only
on the show.
with relationships and emotions, it's not that simple.
Of
You
course.
don't get a money back guarantee with love.
So yeah, we both started to question the credibility of these arranged marriages, and we understood the purpose was so they'd be forced to have important conversations and get to know each other on a, you know, rocket docket kind of experience.
Well, and that they wouldn't just go off and have a fun honeymoon, that they would be serious enough to figure out if they were truly compatible long term. However, it seemed really contrived to me
Oh, 100%.
to set a stage in which we are deciding about divorce and we got to start having real serious conversations. We don't even get to do the fun stuff. How is that fun?
So yeah, it didn't seem like a very natural way for two people to get to know each other and actually choose. Because I think the genius, if you want to call it that, of an arranged marriage where the parents do it is there are very big expectations on the two people to make it work. And it's very disruptive if they don't. And in this case, it's a lot more in limbo.
Right. The
from day
stakes are
one.
not nearly as high, which makes it easier to get out. Yeah, having a divorce date doesn't really make it a commitment to me.
I remember this moment where one of the people mentions that dating apps can be deleted, but rings and commitments keep us here. And marriage requires leaning into discomfort. Well, that's true. I don't know that it's as true in this experiment.
The discomfort of being married and having the stakes high if you get out is a lot more uncomfortable, for sure. But I think the fact that they're married does leave an impression on them and that it is a serious decision. You know, Jeff, I liked when the mediator, Pastor Cal, said, marriage is where we do the difficult work of reconciliation. That just rang true to me.
Yeah, he also said, adjust and accept, but don't break and run, for those who have a tendency toward the flight response.
You know, it was mentioned that qualities for success should be valued over finding the perfect match. And I wholeheartedly agree with this statement. We can have lots in common, but if we haven't developed the qualities for a successful relationship, then those commonalities won't save the marriage.
You know, in response to an uncooperative partner who was complaining about not feeling butterflies, dating coach Dr. Viviana said, if you wait for the feeling that only happens on special occasions, you're going to end up single. And I think that's a myth of our Hollywood culture. And in fact, some of the people that counseled them on that show brought that up, that people wanting to feel the butterflies all the time as evidence that this is the right person are relying on something kind of fickle. And I want to say one thing about that here that I often say, and it bears repeating. The butterflies, the emotions of love are the fruit, not the root. The root is your decision. It's your commitment. That's the basis, the foundation, and the feelings grow out of that. But if you're basing it all on feelings, you're never going to be able to sustain it. It's based on something that's unreliable.
I really liked the participants who were committed.
Right.
They didn't know the person coming in, but they were there to make a marriage work, and they really tried. That's one thing I really valued in those couples, is when that partner was really willing to make it work.
Let me say, too, that they weren't always perfectly rewarded by the people that they were assigned to.
Right. And some of them made it very difficult. In response to a hard-headed spouse who would only see things from his own negative perspective, he said something to the effect of, well, perception is reality. And sociologist Dr. Pepper replied, there's no truth in perspective. We think we're speaking the truth, but it's just our perspective.
Right, it's just our interpretation.
And when she said that, I was like, oh, I'm so glad she thinks the same way. And I'm so glad she's pointing that out. I don't think that it really changed his mind any, but right. At least she pointed it out. So Jeff, what did you think of the experts? I know they didn't always get it right on the matches, and there was a lot of messiness in those relationships. But what did you think about the advice and the counsel they gave the couples through the season?
I think that they had some good relationship advice, even though their method of constructing relationships and pairing people was insane.
So our take, and I agree with you, our take is that part of the relationship reality show we liked is that they offered some good counsel and some pretty poignant observations to the couples. We liked that about it, but the experiment itself was very flawed.
Okay, just to wrap up talking about season 13, it took place in Houston. The couples were all from Texas.
There were 5 couples. The first was Rachel and Jose. And I would say it was a match between someone who's very assertive, I like that about her a lot, to someone who could be really hot-headed. He could get really, really upset and angry, and that was a big focus of the show, is the concern of red flags like the cussing and locking her out of the apartment in the middle of the night. That was a big deal. But they were also the couple that probably had the most passion.
Jose also had kind of a judgmental attitude about finances and thinking that he had and he did have his finances in good order, but he had an idea that there was kind of one way to do that. And I think that was going to create some issues between the two of them because he wasn't necessarily open-minded to let's have some balance or let's consider both of our perspectives.
And he could be sweet and thoughtful. And it did seem to be that the anger was like a one-time thing, but once that's happened, it can be kind of scary. But one thing Rachel had was that assertiveness and also the ability to stand on her own and say, okay, yes, you think you have all the answers, but I also have ideas.
Right. The second couple, Mirla and Gil, now they were the one couple, I think, in the group that ended up deciding to stay married on decision day. Mirla honestly started out with lots of reservations. Gradually, she warmed up more and more to Gil as time went.
She was a princess, like
Right.
wanted everything, like she wanted a lifestyle, but she was willing to work for it, and she was able to afford it. Where Gil was more of a chill guy, just like, hey, let's just calm down, and she was very uptight.
Well, and he was good at sort of dealing with her intensity with a certain calmness, and over time you kind of saw them getting closer and doing better together. And I mean, they didn't even kiss for many, many episodes. And
all the couples were freaked out about that, like, hey, is she ever going to give you any kind of affection? But she did eventually come around that way.
But ultimately, you know, she did come around that way, but not permanently. And ultimately they end up, after decision day, getting divorced. Her explanation, it was her decision, Marila's, and her ultimate reason was, I was never attracted to you, sorry.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, it seemed to be a post hoc rationalization. But be that as it may, it does give me a sense to warn people, if you're trying really hard to make a relationship work and you're just, at all costs, I want this to work, when you're dating someone, maybe a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still.
If you have reservations, take them seriously and don't do it after.
Yeah, and if you're the person who really wants it and the other person is sort of half convinced, don't marry someone who's half convinced. Make sure it's someone who really wants in.
We all deserve more than that. The third couple is Brett and Ryan. Now, Brett is a lovely, charismatic girl, And Ryan tends to be emotional and kind of the victim of his emotions. And this is one of those situations that is very classic, I think, to a lot of people who believe, I'm just not feeling it. If I'm not feeling it, can't help it. He didn't know how to get out of that mentality. They tried to help him, but he just wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, his worldview in my mind was deeply flawed. It was, hey, if I don't love you, there's nothing I can really do about it. That's kind of how that one went. I'm sorry.
And Brett was really trying to be open and trying to encourage him. And I don't know. I just think he missed out on a great girl.
Yeah, she seemed awesome in a lot of ways. And again, I would just reiterate, I would be very nervous about dating someone who says, yeah, I can't help who I love. That's a big red flag. Bao and Johnny, now, they were really the couple that everybody thought was going to work.
They actually knew each other before.
Yeah, they didn't. The matchmakers didn't know that.
No one knew they knew each other way back when. And
in college.
Bao had a crush on Johnny, and Johnny had kind of snuffed her off. But then Johnny was like, oh no, she's actually great. And she said, oh, I could have saved him 100 first dates if he'd just given me a chance back then. She seemed really sweet. I'm sure that she wasn't perfect, but he was super negative. Like, he got negative real fast, and he just got worse the whole season. It was like really maddening to me.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when he, they had a good moment, and then she does something that's mildly irritating, and he says, "Yep, same old Bao."
Oh,
and
yeah,
I actually said that to Cathy as a joke one time when something irritated me. Oh, same old Cathy. But yeah, I mean, he was kind of really visibly enraged at her sometimes.
What's wild is in the end he said, yep, I want to make this work. I'm sorry I've been such a jerk. And she's like, no, I've had enough. And
all this time she'd been trying to convince him to go all in, and he just, was so negative with her. And they both had a lot to recommend them, but they were attractive, successful people, and,
yeah, I was kind of sad they didn't.
They were
work out.
both Asian and very proud of that. But yeah, it didn't take.
So last couple, Michaela and Zach. Now, she was real hot-headed. Like, she could get real upset real fast, and Zach did not like it.
I was all with Zach on that, by the way.
Yeah. Although it was interesting because he was reactive to her reactivity that he hated.
Right.
So together they were just not a good match that way.
He would get super calm and then just walk off. That's what he did. He just wouldn't show it, but he would basically, I can't deal with this. I'm out. One final observation that I want to make is that everybody, to a person that was a participant on this show, was looking for a shortcut. They said, I just want to be married. Every one of them said that, and they were looking for a quick, easy way. And I think one thing, the fact that none of the relationships worked out, shows you that there's not generally a quick, easy way. There's not a quick fix for I want to be married, just give me someone. Because they had professional matchmakers put them together with people, and all the relationships bombed.
For our viewers who have never watched Married at First Sight, what was your favorite topic discussed in this video? And for our viewers who have watched Married at First Sight, share your thoughts about the series or about season 13 specifically in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say. If what we are sharing as single life and relationship coaches appeals to you, go to loveandlateryears.com and sign up for a free consult. We would love to meet with you personally. And remember, anytime is a great time for more love in your life.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks for joining us for another week on LilyTube. If you enjoy what you see, support us by liking, commenting, and sharing your favorite videos with others who could benefit.
As single life and relationship coaches, our mission is to help single adults intentionally heal from loss to create a happy life and healthy relationships. Keep coming back and we'll keep you encouraged. Each week, we provide new and refreshing perspectives on the challenges and opportunities of mid-single life.
If you'd like to immerse yourself deeper into your own personal development and relationship journey, visit our website at loveandlateryears.com for even more resources. Don't take on divorce recovery and other relationship loss and single life alone. We are here for you.